SPACE capsule. This will feature our fantasy studies sector. And presenting our first capsule is our esteemed space preceptor, Dr. Sarah Brown. And I will introduce Dr. Brown. Dr. Brown serves as Signum University's Language and Literature Department Chair and Thesis Coordinator for the MA program. She is a lecturer and preceptor for the MA program and also a preceptor in space. Welcome, Sarah.
Hi, Rob. It's great to be here.
Oh, great to have you, Sarah. The title of Dr. Brown's capsule is Bring On the Numenorian Dancing Bears, and a little description about it. Amongst the little snippets of detail that we have about life on the island of Numenor, we find a fascinating reference to Numenorian bears and their custom of gathering yearly each fall to perform slow but dignified dances. There are other places in Tolkien's legendarium where we find references to bears, for example, in The Hobbit and the Father Christmas letters. And in every case, these bears are depicted as acting in ways very different to what we might expect of such wild creatures. Join Dr. Sarah Brown for a short but fun discussion of Tolkien's dancing bears. So over to you, Sarah.
Hey, Sarah,
Thanks, Rob.
can I interrupt real quickly?
Yes,
Because
you
it's
can.
come to my attention that I totally forgot something, and I can't forget this because so we want to do a drawing to give away because we're celebrating space today. We are giving away space tokens. We want everybody to try space who can. So we want to give away a space token to people who are attending the live sessions here today.
Oh, absolutely, Corey.
So
Yes.
what I'm going to do is on the Twitch chat. So we're going to do this through Twitch. So if you want to join the giveaway to join the drawing, make sure that you're in the Twitch chat. Here's what's going to happen. I'm going to open it right now. There it goes. Okay, so if you're in Twitch chat, type !raffle, one word, so no space, !, and the word raffle, and you will be entered into the drawing at the end of the space segment. So after all of the space capsules are done and everything, then I'll close the drawing and we'll draw a winner at the end of it. Okay, so I see people entering now. So I was totally supposed to do that before and forgot, and I don't want to neglect it. Sorry, Sarah.
Did you space out?
Huh? I totally spaced it. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Don't worry, that's the last joke.
Shockingly, for all of the space puns we have made in the last year, I don't think I ever made that one yet. So there we go.
There is my award for the most awful space pun.
There we go.
Next year.
Next year.
Okay. I think we need to be keeping a list of these, Rob.
Yes, yeah, that's right. I'll write it down.
Okay, is it all right for me to share my screen?
Let's see. That I will attempt to arrange here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. There you go. You should be clear.
Let me give it a sec. And now it lets me. Okie dokie. There we are. All right, Laurel, give me a quick thumbs up if you can see my screen. Awesome. Thank you very much. Thank you, Sharon. Okie dokie. So this sort of gives a little bit of a flavor of a new space course that's coming up next December, which I'll tell you a little bit about. And when we get to the end of this space capsule, I'll tell you a little bit more about it because there's some really exciting details and things that might make you want to go, ooh, and perhaps sign up for it. So I'm going to keep you hanging on that until the very end of the capsule. But just to kind of situate this a little bit, this is the capsule on fantasy studies, and it'll come as no surprise to anybody who knows me, but I'm focusing on Tolkien. And I'm also going to give you a little snippet of the course that I'm doing in December, which is on the history of Numenor. So we're going to look at the important events, the significant people, the geography of the island, the culture of the Numenorians. And then I thought, why not dancing bears? So that's what we're going to do, is we're going to look at the dancing bears. Now, when I first read the Unfinished Tales a million years ago, I was struck by this tiny little section just halfway through the bit on the second age and Numenor, and it talks about bears. And it's just this little section on bears. When the Fall of Numenor, which was recently published, came out, I checked, but there was nothing else revealed. But let's have a look at what is said about the Numenorian dancing bears. Okay, so the first little bit is this. There were bears in considerable numbers in the mountainous or rocky parts, both of a black and brown variety. The great black bears were found mostly in the forest area, that should say, that's a typo. The relations of the bears and men were strange. From the first, the bears exhibited friendship and curiosity towards the newcomers. These feelings were returned. At no time was there any hostility between men and bears. There were mating times, and during the first youth of their cubs, they could be angry and dangerous if disturbed. The Numenorians did not disturb them except by mischance. Very few Numenorians were ever killed by bears, and these mishaps were not regarded as reasons for war upon the whole race. Many of the bears were quite tame. They never dwelt in or near the homes of men, but they would often visit them in the casual manner of one householder calling upon another. At such times, they were often offered honey to their delight. Only an occasional bad bear ever raided the tame hives. Okay, so first thing that strikes me is that last little bit there about them not dwelling in or near the homes of men, but would visit them, and at such times were often offered honey to their delight, and only an occasional bad bear ever raided the tame hives. I'm getting just a little whiff of A.A. Milne's Winnie the Pooh with this one, but you know, I'm not going to tell you that that's exactly where Tolkien got his dancing bears from, but we're going to have a look at some of the potential ideas that his dancing bears for Numenor came from in a little bit. Now, I want to point out to you where we're talking about. So these bears lived in the Foresta part of the island of Numenor. So you can see the map there, and it looks like a five-pointed star. And if you look at the very top of the five-pointed star, that's the area where the bears come from. Now, this shouldn't be a surprise to us, I suppose, because Tolkien's other bears that we will discuss often come from somewhere north. So here we have them coming from the north of the island of Numenor. So let's continue with what we find out about these dancing bears. All right, so most strange of all were the bear dances. The bears, the black bears especially, had curious dances of their own, but these seem to have become improved and elaborated by the instruction of men. At times, the bears would perform dances for the entertainment of their human friends. The most famous was the Great Bear Dance in Quenya, that was Ruxuale, of Tompole in the Foresta, that northern bit, to which every year in the autumn many would come from all parts of the island, since it occurred not long after the Eruhantale, at which a great concourse was assembled. Okay, what was the Eruhantale? Does anybody know?
I don't remember.
Okay.
It's been ages since I've read this bit.
All right, anybody?
Is it when the king went up the mountain? I can't remember the name of the mountain now.
Yeah, the Meneltama.
Yes.
Yes, it is. In fact, the Eruhantale, well done. The Eruhantale was the last of the 3 prayers to Eru spoken each year by the king or queen of Numenor. And in the ceremony, the monarch and his or her people gave thanks to Eru, and it was held at the end of each autumn. So the king or queen would go up the Meneltama, accompanied by a silent, white-clad crowd of people, because only the king or queen was allowed to speak on the Meneltama, and they were the only ones allowed to actually voice any kind of prayer to Eru. And the ruler would make a prayer and a bloodless offering on the mountain summit. At this stage in Numenor, the offerings were bloodless. It's not until towards the end of the Second Age, with the coming of Sauron, that they actually have human sacrifices. So 3 great eagles, the witnesses of Manwë, would hover overhead, And the word Eru Hantale means thanksgiving to Eru in Quenya, from the word Hantale, which actually means Thanksgiving, which is a nice thing to know for this coming week, I think, for our American friends. Okay, now we're getting to the fun bit, right? The dancing bears bit. So, to those not accustomed to the bears, the slow but dignified motions of the bears, sometimes as many as 50 or more together, appeared astonishing and comic. But it was understood by all admitted to the spectacle there should be no open laughter. The laughter of men was a sound that the bears could not understand. It alarmed and angered them. Okay, the first thing I want to say here is I don't normally read out huge swathes of text off a PowerPoint. If this was in a class, I would obviously be asking the students to have the book with them so that we could, look at it together. But I can't guarantee that everybody's going to have the book. So that's why I've committed the ultimate PowerPoint sin today and read it out to you. Okay, so what does this say about the bears? They're pretty anthropomorphic, actually. Black bears have dances of their own, but the humans also teach them dances. So what does this imply about the bears? What can we sort of take from the language of the text and think about what that means for the bears themselves? Any thoughts?
Well, at first, I what comes to mind is, and I don't know the proper name for the Asian, I believe, Chinese practice with the motions, that you do.
Tai Chi.
Yeah, that thing, the meditative. It's almost that comes to mind in some ways to this description. That, and also sort of there's an ant-like, natural slow process to their performance. So I'm kind of relating it to those things that I know. So that's what's coming to me first.
So what we're getting there is something that's quite thoughtful, and
Right.
like the spiritual practice that goes into Tai Chi, for example. So something very thoughtful and meaningful, but also very dignified. Each movement kind of almost meaning something. And I think that actually gives us an idea of how Tolkien wants us to view these bears, that they are dignified, that they have thought processes, that they are intelligent, and they must be intelligent because 50 of them dancing together. I mean, who's doing the choreography? Someone off at the side is actually doing choreography and getting 50 bears to all do it together.
And
I'm getting a sorry.
No,
Go
ahead,
Ruth,
go
go on.
I don't know. I was thinking it reminds me a lot of sort of the older religions that we have. They have certain dances that they do that are almost like a type of worship, and I think that fits very well with the timing of the event. So it's not just going up the mental Dharma and things like that that's being done in worship. It's like this is a part of the whole festival. And
right, yeah, because there's no intimation here that the bears are celebrating Eru Hantale. It's just their Tompole, which is their festival, seems to come almost immediately after the Eru Hantale, and it's just a convergence of two separate festivals, isn't it?
I mean, we get that quite a lot with real world religions where festivals do sort of match up and blend together. And I get a lot of that sort of feeling from it.
Yeah, maybe it's the time of year where they're coming together to celebrate something in particular, but the time of year kind of generates that desire to have some form of festival. Sharon, you had your hand up first, then I'll come to Carrie.
The other thing I would recognize, and also this connects to the first passage we read, is that while there is connection or communion or communication between humans and bears, there is still a divide of understanding. Perhaps there's a divide of otherness between the two, that we can't assume that they're like, Yogi Bear and Boo Boo or anything like that. Or even, the Winnie the Pooh. It's definitely that there is a difference. They have their own internal traditions and communications that even probably the most that connected wouldn't understand them.
Right. And that sort of points me towards the bit towards the end of this section, where it says that it appeared astonishing and comic. And that's kind of unfortunate. That makes me feel a little bit uncomfortable, actually, because to the bears, this is clearly a really significant moment. This is a yearly celebration, and they permit the humans to come and see this happening. But the humans find it a bit comic. I find that a little
Well,
bit.
not all. It said those who just don't, who are not accustomed to them. So I feel like there are some who it as with anything, that even in our own experience, right? There are some who are respectful, and there are those who are rather foolish and ignorant, and don't understand. So it's a nice reflection of actually what we see, between cultures and different people groups.
Yeah, that's well thought through. Thanks, Sharon. Carrie, what did you have to add there?
A bunch of the things you guys just said fall right into the parallels that I see between him introducing the Numenorians in the first passage and adding the bears, and him introducing the bears here and adding the Numenorians. And in both cases, he has language that identify both races as inhabitants on par.
Yeah.
That in the first section, the bears are the ones that are egalitarian and are okay with learning about the ways of the Numenorians. And then the second one, it's the Numenorians who need to learn about the ways of the bears and be a little more egalitarian. And I think this pairs or follows really well with Tolkien's emphasis on the fact that the manifestations of nature that we can interact with need to be respected and understood. And laughter is absolutely inappropriate. There are times when laughter is wonderful, but it doesn't come in a mocking way from Tolkien towards nature.
No. Yeah. And he also makes it clear here that the bears don't really understand what laughter actually denotes, which again tells us about a separation of two very different cultures that have to actually build understanding towards each other.
That, and I think laughter as a source of sound, they may not have understood why the men would be laughing, but they did understand that their dance was not for men. And for the men to interject themselves into the dance was understandable. And so yes, that would be alarming and angering, because they were invited to witness, not participate, not receive, and not react. So it seems like his bears are community organized enough to have that level of understanding of ways and patterns of respectful behavior.
Right. Thanks, Carrie. Thank you. Sharon.
Regarding the laughter, this isn't just in the context of the bear's performance, but if we think of the passage before, it's in all the relationships. So perhaps it is just something that, again, is a barrier of understanding between the two. Even in the context of the passage that was shared before, where they, leave food out, or they kind of hang out together, or kind of coexist, there's still a lack of understanding of both sides.
Yeah, great points, everybody. So just to add on to this, there seems to be absolutely no implication at all that there was hunting of the bears. That even though a few humans inadvertently were killed, it's probably because they were in the wrong place at the wrong time doing the wrong thing where the bears were. So there's no animosity even when some of the Numenorians were actually killed by bears. And there's also, and I think this is an important point, because this is different to the case in our primary world, there's no sense of them training or forcing these bears to dance for human entertainment. And I think that is really significant, because of course we find in our primary world, if we look at our different cultures in this world where dancing bears have been, and they're mostly gone, but they are still to be found in a few countries. That these are bears that are treated pretty badly, and they are trained in a very painful manner, in which the trainer will play music and the bear will be put on a metal platform through which there are electric shocks and heat, and the bear will lift their paws to get away from the electric shocks and heat. And so the next time they hear that music, they will actually make those movements. And there's no sense of that here at all. There's no sense of the humans feeling themselves to be dominant over the bears at all. Ruth, go on.
I was just wondering, sort of timeline wise, was this written before The Hobbit? Because I'm getting almost sort of like proto Beyond feelings from it. They're not fully changing into men, but it's kind of got the thought of that there.
I'm coming to The Hobbit, so you're right.
Sorry.
No, it's because it's good to spot these things. There are a number of dancing bears in other books that Tolkien wrote, so we'll have a look at those as well. So let me come to those. Get rid of that dancing bear. Okay, so the first one is Karhu, the North Polar Bear, from the Letters from Father Christmas. Now, this bear, of course, is rather delightful because he is a little mischievous. He gets himself into trouble a lot. He's described as doing all sorts of kind of silly things. Now, he has two nephews. One is called Paksu, the other one is called Valkatuka, and they're both very mischievous. Valkatuka, for example, he swallows a ball of red string, thinking that it's cake. Karhu himself is often described as silly and doing silly things, like he sets off fireworks and scares the reindeer. He falls through the roof of the house. He falls down the stairs. He chops his paw instead of a tree. He gets lost in caves for a week and has to be rescued by the cave bear. But he is also a dancing bear. And there he is dancing with the penguins. And I have my copy of the Father Christmas Letters here. And on page 190, there's a tiny description. Okay, so it says, the picture is of polar bear dancing with their chiefs. By their chiefs, it's the penguins. They amuse us enormously. They don't really help much, but are always playing funny dancing games and trying to imitate the walk of polar bear and the cubs. So Karhu is a fun-loving polar bear who gets up to mischievous things, but he too dances. Okay, so next one is, just for you, Ruth, dancing bears in The Hobbit. Okay, so we know that great and ancient bears had lived within the Misty Mountains for some time. By the late Third Age, their number had diminished. Gandalf tells Bilbo that giants had taken up their homes in that mountain range. And according to Gandalf, some believe that Beorn, the skin changer, was a black bear that was descended from them. And Gandalf says in chapter 7, Queer Lodgings, I have been picking out bear tracks. There must have been a regular bears meeting outside here last night. I soon saw that Beorn could not have made them all. There were far too many of them, and they were of various sizes too. I should say there were little bears, large bears, ordinary bears, and gigantic big bears, all dancing outside from dark to nearly dawn. So, though the annual Great Bear Dance that we heard about a little while ago, that obviously ends with the downfall of Numenor, the ordinary bear dances, they live on into the Third Age. And as we can see, according to Gandalf, bears of various sizes east of the Misty Mountains occasionally gather outside of Beorn's Hall for a regular bears meeting, where they dance from dark to nearly dawn. So it's possible that this dance could be related in some way to the Great Bear Dance. Now, Ruth, you asked, in terms of timeline, which was written first? The Bears of Numenor or the Bears of the Hobbit? Okay, The best I have found, because I couldn't track down an exact date, is that the Bears of the Hobbit were written first, with the Bears of the Second Age, because the Second Age stuff is so small, there's so little of it. I think that the Bears of the Second Age, the Númenórean dancing bears, were actually created slightly later, but I'm not 100% on that one, and I'm happy to be corrected. Okay, so what we do have, though, is something that is a clear link between Bears of the Second Age and Bears of the Third Age. And we're meant to take the dancing bear moot of the Hobbit equally seriously. This is not, bears putting on party hats and tootling party favors and all that kind of thing. This is a proper bear dance in which these bears come together. And we know it's serious because Beorn is serious. That's a serious character. So I think that's how we are meant to perceive them. Okay, so that's the Bears of the Hobbit, but there's more, because I don't know if any of you have read Mr. Bliss. There are bears in Mr. Bliss. Now, there's just one moment in Mr. Bliss where it seems like the bears are dancing. He's got 3 bears. They're called Archie, Teddy, and Bruno. Okay, and they do actually... I've got my copy of Mr. Bliss right here. Such a lovely book. Okay, so this is where the 3 bears have invited a bunch of people over to supper. It says, the bears really took pains with that supper, and the Dawkinses and Mrs. Knight and old Mr. Day forgave them altogether when they saw it. And when they had eaten it, they danced and sang together like old friends. So that, to me, says that the bears were joining in the dancing. So we have dancing bears in Mr. Bliss. And if you haven't read Mr. Bliss, it is the most delightful little story. So you really, really should. Okay, so now I want to give you a little bit of language nerdery, just to add to all of it. Tolkien, as we know, loved his language nerdery, and he actually used a number of different languages and bear words, if you like. So in Sindarin, the word for bear was graw, and I've put where these come from, by the way, on the slide. So this one comes from Vinya Tengwa. Early Noldorin had 2 words for bear, brog and megli, with a variation meglivorn, which meant black bear in particular. And the Quenya word is morco, which shares a root with brog. And that comes from The Lost Road and Other Writings, Part 3. So that's from the History of Middle-earth. In Common Eldarin, it's given as morocco and morocke. Morocke means she-bear. And that comes from Parma Elder Lamberon, 21. Adunaic, which is particularly interesting to those of us looking at the Númenórean bears, because Adunaic, of course, was a language spoken on Númenor. You get Urug in common gender singular, which is bear as a species or creature. The masculine singular Urgu, meaning male bear, and the feminine singular Urgi, meaning female bear or she-bear, and you find that in Sauron Defeated, which is another of the History of Middle-earth series. So just a little bit of language nerdery. Go on, Ruth.
Sorry, I'm just noticing I'm not the best with the languages, but a lot of the words are bringing up other words that I think of as perhaps for the bad guys. So the sort of prefix of Mordor, Morgoth, things like that. And then even with the Adunaic, or however you say it,
Yeah,
that's it. They're bringing up almost, I'm feeling like Urukai and things like that. It seems odd that the bears have been not necessarily friendly, but not something to worry about. But the words have got this sort of underlying feeling, to me anyway, of sort of the not so good side of Tolkien's world.
That's really interesting. Yeah, now I looked at like you, the languages are not my speciality. I'd have to ask someone like Andy Higgins on this one, but When I was looking at Urgi and Urgu, I was thinking Ursa, which of course is Latin for bear. So I was just wondering if perhaps sort of there was a bit of a, I know that Adunaic is not based on Latin or anything like that, but I just wondered if kind of that came from there. But the more prefix, it does seem to kind of trend along with some words that give us pause. I don't know is the answer to that, but that's the sort of thing that in the course that I'm running in December, that we could have a real deep dive into Numenor. I promised no more jokes, but I'm afraid I did it. We'll wave that one aside. Yeah, okay, I'll stop now because Laurel is looking really severe. Let's move this one along. Okay, so that's just a taster of what the sorts of things we're going to talk about in this December space class, which is called The History, People and Culture of Tolkien's Numenor, with special guests. But who do we have as special guests? Well, the first special guest we have, and I'm so excited, is Brian Sibley, the author of The Fall of Numenor. Now, he's currently recuperating from knee surgery, so he hasn't told me which class he's going to be able to come to, and I suspect it will be towards the end of December because he's got to recuperate from the knee surgery. The artist here, this is one of Ted Naismith's pictures. I'm afraid putting it on the PowerPoint just cut off his signature, which is in the top left. Sorry, Ted. Yeah, so Brian Sibley is going to be joining us probably towards the end of December. And the other one who will be joining us, and I believe she's coming on the 14th of December, is Dr. Christine Larson, who has written extensively on astronomy in Numenor and Tar Maneldur. And I'm very excited about that because there is nothing that Chris Larson doesn't know about astronomy in Middle-earth. So we've got some really, really exciting special guests. You don't have to listen to me for the entirety of 4 weeks. You can also listen to these very exciting people as well. So I hope that some of you folks will sign up for this course because we've got quite a decent number already signed up for it, and we're going to have a lot of fun. And that's everything from me. So thank you very much for coming to this space capsule. And I'll stop sharing. There we go. All done, Rob, and on time. Look at that. All done, Rob, and on time.
Oh, Sarah, thank you so much.
You're welcome.